a look at Thorzain's crazy aggressive Marine Hellion double reactor opening. And double reactor openings just excite me so much. I mean, not just like reactor on a barracks and a reactor on a factory, but sometimes, you see players go double barracks with double reactor. Like, that's cool. There's these weird-ass timings that come out of it that, again, are non-intuitive timings. It's not like, my stim finished, time to go, or combat shield finished, time to go. It's, I have a lot of Marines ready to roll out. So, a question I posited towards everyone is, how do we do our swapping on the buildings in the early, or as we head into the mid-game? How do we do that sort of swapping? How do we get a bunch more barracks to make Marines? How do we get the upgrades to get Marines? Are we giving this barracks to this tech lab? Are we giving a barracks to this reactor? When are we getting the tech lab so that we can begin building tanks? Hell, when do we get an engineering bay to even go into that sort of stuff? These are big concerns, because what you don't want to do is do some sort of crazy aggressive play like this and suddenly think to yourself, oh shit, I didn't win. Ah, crap. I guess I better go Marine tank, because then all of a sudden it means you're way, way, way far behind. So this build, very fun, very aggressive. I'm marginally disappointed that, as we see in the unit counting station, 7 Zerglings. And if we have 9 Marines, a Hellion, a Medevac, I mean, DRG's dead if we just hit the front, right? He's just super screwed if we hit it anytime soon. But the reason I especially like this composition of a lot of Marines, a lot of Hellions, and 1 Medevac on this map is that tactically, we can do drops up here. This is a very potent dropping zone. But this is what really excited me, is that Thorzain actually just went ahead and came all the hell way back around and just dropped anywhere else. This is something you could do on Shattered Temple. You could do this on Shakura's Plateau. You could do this on Metalopolis. You don't necessarily need an expansion right there. He can just easily drop here. And in fact, this is more guaranteed to be able to pop up to the high ground up on top. We're already starting to see some transitions come in place. We see some barracks. Another barracks with reactor being planted there blindly. That's interesting. Let's go ahead and step away from that for now, though. Obviously, this drop doing some significant damage. And keep in mind, that whole time, the question I asked of how do we get to our mid-game that we wanted oh so badly. Now all of a sudden we have a huge scary push coming in. Be really leery of firing those Hellions at Queens when you get into high ground, because you notice how big of a shot you could have gotten off on the Zerglings. But of course, this is really cool stuff. This is a very cool, unique little push that's doing quite a bit of damage. And you're also noticing that it's coming right before the Mutalisks come up. So what I'm noticing, and what I'm, of course, going to be presenting as the big thing, is that we know that... God, this webcam's going all over the place. We know that this works. We can see a little bit why it works, but I want to emphasize most of all that it works. And that's okay to just try to do some of that sort of stuff in your play. Just be like, I don't know why I'm doing it, but I'm doing it, so... However, the most important thing now is to ask ourselves, well, what sort of situation are we in, right? We've done a lot of damage to his economy. This is looking quite good. I'm really liking this a lot. We've lost all our units. Okay, I'm liking that a little bit less. Now, as a general rule, if we kill off a lot of his workers, this is an obvious question, but I'm still going to ask it. If we kill off a lot of his workers, or say kill off an expansion, or do something damaging to his economy, when is the worst possible time to attack? I know this sounds kind of like an obvious question, but I'm still going to ask. If you do significant damage to his economy, and you, like, kill off a bunch of drones or kill off his economy, when is, like, the worst time to attack? Yes, immediately. Right afterwards. Right afterwards. Great. Except Trap Card, he says 30 minutes from now. That is also a bad time to attack. Okay, so I've said that. I've said that as the most intuitively obvious thing ever, right? That makes a lot of sense. And if you do no damage to his economy, and you kill off, say, a ton of his units, a lot of defense at his front, a better time to attack would be closer to now. Because if his economy's better than yours, you don't want to let that extend. If his economy is way worse than yours, you want to let your own economy extend. These seem intuitively obvious, right? But the weird thing is that people's buildings never freaking reflect that, and that drives me nuts. In my complete and total post-swimming in the morning exhaustion, I will wake up to note that it drives me insane to see people's buildings not reflect the damage that they did. And this, I think, is one of the fundamental gaps between some of the best aggressive players and the wannabe aggressors, is that the wannabe aggressors will build the same structures. They'll get the tech labs at the same time, reactors at the same time, factories at the same time, and attack, and if it works, great. If not, boo. And they treat it as an element to their build instead of a decision point. So as we come here back to this game, wow, we killed off a hell of a lot of drones. Why now does it make sense to get 2 barracks with reactors? Well, if we got barracks with, say, tech labs on them, we would be trying to get stim or combat shield early. Let me just discount Marauders. We're not going to get Marauders early. So let's just pretend we're just talking about the upgrades from the Tech Lab. Why would we get a Tech Lab early? Because we want to be getting the Stim and Combat Shields. So we want to be reinforcing our Marines early so that way we can do an earlier attack. We're not doing an early attack. We want to start getting lots of units early. So that way when we have our big attack later, it's even larger. Again, you have 2 decisions. Do I get Stim and Combat Shield first? Or do I get a lot of units first? Stim or Combat Shield means you have a faster attack. The faster reactor means that whenever you do attack, it is much bigger. Very intuitively obvious, but suddenly we can see a justification for this. Oh my god, we broke in here and did a ton of damage in the main, so suddenly seeing these 2 barracks with reactors makes a lot of sense. Hell, if I did any attack, hell, if I went for, I don't know, just a regular old factory with a reactor, right? A regular old standard reactor factory, did double Hellion, put pressure on. Let's say I had a barracks with let's say I got a barracks with a really fast tech lab, and then suddenly I did a ton of damage to him. Like a ridiculous amount of damage to him with my Hellions. I wasn't expecting to. I was expecting to kill maybe 4 drones. Let's say I killed like 17 drones. Then get more barracks with reactors early on. Start getting siege tanks earlier on. Because again, something that gets in the way of your siege tank production would be, for instance, getting a tech lab on a barracks. Getting that stim and combat shield up. What if we tried to poke in here and didn't really do any damage? Well, you know what? I would lift up this starport. I would give this barracks to the starport, and I would get stim straight away. And yeah, I mean, we see Thorzain going for this barracks on the tech lab, but it is after getting these 2 things, and more importantly, getting it after the factory. So, hilariously enough, Thorzain is going to, after one of the most aggressive openings ever, become ridiculously slow in his gameplay. Very slow. His goal is to eventually push up to here. Does he do that quickly? Does he do that immediately? Does he do it later? Does he wait a bit? All depends on how the success of that attack went. All depends on that. So there's the tech lab coming down. There's the stim. Obviously doing a little bit of marine containment. This upgrade, eventually going for the upgrades. I don't really want to focus so much on the engineering bay timings. I could, but again, I want to focus more on this double reactor thing and the very fast tanks, because we are going to see the tank count begin to get very high very quickly. Now this, I actually remove the production tab. This timing right here can actually be a big trap for a lot of learning. This is one thing I liked a lot about Brood War, is you could say something like, man, they both hit each other and did a lot of damage early on, so given what happened, this is a large tank count. This number makes me want to say, oh, 11 minutes and 20 seconds, and you only have 1 tank. That's not a lot. Or, oh, 8 minutes, and he has 2 tanks. That's pretty good.
Additional supply depots required.
Don't think too much like that. Thorzain, you need to build some supply depots, man. Everyone can hear you. And now, why does this make sense? Why does this make intuitive sense? Sure, we had the money for it. But why not make some additional barracks? Why not make another factory? Well, if we have the lead in economy, the longer the game goes on, the more my economy was able to contribute to the amount of units I had. If I'm getting 1,000 resources a minute, and you are getting 500 resources a minute, all I need to do is let minutes happen. And then I'm in amazing shape. So this command center play by Thorzain, again, it's consistent with this, holy crap, I did a lot of damage to it. An option that you could have is to say, build these extra barracks, but that would be like, yeah, I did some damage. His economy is maybe a little behind mine. So because it's a little bit behind mine, I'm first going to start building up Marines, and then I'm going to do just a wicked powerful 6 barracks attack with 4 reactors. Starting to see how these buildings are a really remarkably important decision for us to make. I don't want to do drop for the pure and simple reason that he has Mulists, and that's inconsistent with me getting a big army. If you had to make a bunch of units right now to defend against some of my aggression, me doing small little poking and prodding is going to play right into that. So Thorzain goes ahead and plays a little bit slowly, and we're going to speed up until maybe 15 minutes. Reactor on the starport. Don't really need to get the reactor too early. No, not a huge amount of stimming by Thorzain, just playing very, very methodically. And you know, we're still seeing him not push. And this looks like not that many tanks, right? 3 tanks. I think it's 3. I'm intentionally trying not to open these tabs. There's a 4th tank, and it's like 4.5 tanks. And I know you can see the food tabs right here. But the reason I took off the production, the reason I took off the units is with our 4 tanks. With those 4 tanks, we can suddenly go to the Everyone tab and actually look at what Dong Regu has and see why it is a lot. Actually, Dong Regu just held in the unit tab. Whoa, he has 13 Zerglings, and here they are. He has 12 Mutalisks, and there they are. Holy crap. 47 Marines, 4 tanks, almost 5 tanks. Wow. Whoa. And this is something that you need to do. You must, especially as Terran, because Reactor versus Tech Lab is like it's like really far the hell apart in terms of the outcome. If you did this and you went for really fast Marines, you might have something like 3 tanks and 28 Marines. Very few Marines. And many Terran players will erroneously get this stim and combat shield really early. We have said so many times in this game, that the stim and combat shield coming late, coming after the reactor barracks, coming after the Tech Lab factory, and then we're getting Tech Lab barracks. But notice, he has stim and combat shield. He didn't attack earlier. There's no earlier time at which he needed him. It looks good. It looks good. If he went for a way earlier stim and combat shield, then he would suddenly be at the exact same part he is now. He would have stim, he would have combat shield, but he would have way less Marines. And now suddenly, Thorzain, who begins to move out, does he know if there's an expansion here or not? Does he know if there's an expansion here or not? Does he know about the tech that's going on in here? Does he know if his opponent is going upgrades or banelings? Not really. He sees a lot of Mutalisks, and his goal is to exploit this region. A simple as hell goal. And he's moving out and taking his 3rd as he's attacking. And now around, I'd probably say right when this push is happening at around 15 minutes, I would describe this as a bit of a convergence point. If you went crazy aggro, like if you went for this Hellion Marine opening and did a lot of damage and did this style, you'd still end up with about 3 bases. 1, 2, 3. There's the second one, there's the first, and here's the third. You'd probably have 4 barracks. You might have 1 or 2 factories and a starport. If you went for crazy aggro mode and did something like these 3 buildings, a Tech Lab barracks, a regular factory with Tech Lab, and a starport, and did crazy aggressive pushing, you'd still end up with 3 bases, 4 barracks, a starport, and a factory. So right about now is where I officially kind of label a stop to a lot of the mid-game stuff that can actually occur, and a lot of mid-game stuff that can actually go on. And he's just going to begin his slow, methodical push. And what I love about Thorzain that I think is so important to note is that he's just going to begin sieging up right when he's nearby the creep, and he's going to play it slow. He's just going to slowly walk his tanks forward. Transferring SCVs, getting up his planetary, getting up, yeah, blah, 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 building all this jank. Yeah, nothing really interesting is going on in the main base. Just a slow, easy push. When we get to the 16-minute mark, we'll take a brief break because I'm running low on my anti-hiccup water. The tanks slowly advance forward. But there's no dropping up here. There's no attacking over here. There's no attacking over here. Now, again, I talked about the simplicity of the goal, abusing this terrain. Why would Thorzain not want to go for a drop right now? Why would he not want to split up everything? It relates back to that early damage that he did. Why would he not want to do that? There's a lot of times that when you push, it's like, well, yeah, I'm going to push, but I really have to almost just do little harassment bits all over the place. That seems like the most intuitive thing to do. Let's go ahead and take some of the comments. Let's take some of the comments. So, Moonlight Knight says 12 Muta will crush a dropship. Though this is true, we've seen players like MMA do drops and peel the Mutalisk away while the rest of his force does some big crazy aggression at the front. Why would it make more sense, though, for Thorzain from a much higher level thought process? Why would that be better for him not to do drops? Let's see here. So Delida 1500 says no need to take risks when you know you're ahead. So that's also not quite it, because if it's that would imply that it's always a risk to do a medevac drop. When a lot of times you're saying, I'm going to do a drop, and it should do some damage, and even if it doesn't, it'll push my opponent's army out of position. Or hell, I'll just attack him and drop at the same time, and one of them's bound to work. Let's see what are some other things. Looks like someone's taking out the garbage outside. People are saying, you're ahead, blah, 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 blah. He knows he's ahead. It would risk taking more damage. Kind of the same thing. Can't harass because of the Mutalisks. Well, he can harass because of the Mutalisks. He would just catch him out of position. So this is the way that I would phrase it. Oh, there it is from Bulu Gulu. Says, we have a bigger army and he can't engage us because of our earlier lead. That's actually the big thing. Hell, if you did a bunch of damage to his economy and you went, yes, yes. Now, notice the way I'm going to say it makes it sound like the most obvious thing in the world. And then I'm going to attack what I just said, just to kind of point out some of the mindsets that could come in. Earlier on, we went, yes, I did a lot of economic damage. I have a huge lead in economy. So I am going to build up a big force and do a later attack. Because again, if I wait enough minutes, for every minute I wait, that allows me a little bit more time to exploit my economic lead. So I'm going to have a much, much bigger army. I have a much bigger army. And then I'm going to move out to attack. And my advantage this whole time has been the fact that I have created a situation in which I have a bigger army. I have a bigger army. So if I keep my army together and just force my way forward and engage his army, I will be bigger and I will be better and I will crush him. Yeah, it sounds so obvious. Why would I want to split anything away? That literally is not consistent with the logic of I want to get a big army. Yeah. If you wanted to do all that crazy aggression stuff, that crazy aggression stuff works a little better when someone else is kind of focused on economy, because they're cutting back on units a little bit. They can only really engage one force as it's all collected. And if you start spreading them thin, then each individual component becomes weaker and out of position. And someone might ask the question, well, why not just try to spread him out a little bit thin here as well? why not try to do the big drops in the back of his base? Technically, it's not really a risk, because, I mean, if you're at a even food Terran and you're doing a lot of drops, and now all of a sudden you're ahead against him, if you do drops, I mean, there's definitely going to likely be some sort of positive benefit. I mean, from a zoomed back point of view. But if we come back and just ask ourselves the question, what the hell is our original goal? Well, I'm just going to exploit the hell out of this thing. Do I need drops to be able to do that? You see what I'm doing now? I'm stating my goal. I'm stating my goal. I want to exploit this little bit of terrain. I want to hit it really hard. Early damage may or may not help that. Doing drops against him may or may not help that. The drops don't contribute here. They don't contribute to our goal. They really don't contribute to our goal of exploiting this. We've already set up this huge mass army logic to be able to exploit this. And there it is. We have the position to be able to do this right now. Again, it's so easy to fall into that trap of being like, drops are just good in general. They are just good in general. I will do them because other players do them. But that is how you end up in a spot where you're always behind the best of the best and just mimicking. And you're saying, well, you need a drop because it's the right thing to do and everyone else is dumb. And then all of a sudden, Terran players start using something weird like Ravens. And you're like, oh, anyone who doesn't use his Ravens is dumb, and that's what you've got to do. And all of a sudden, Terrans start ghost rushing. And you're like, oh, is that... Alright, well, I'm ghost rushing. If you're not ghost rushing, then you're bad. You're not thinking for yourself. Don't just copy. Think. Because here, I look at Thorzain and I'm like, yes, of course you want to just do a straight direct push at the front. That only lines up properly with what it looks like you're doing all game long. We're going to take a break. I'm going to get more water. Here we go. Water time.